Alrighty, guys. Time to wrap it up for today. It is 3:30 and market is grinding higher. So we cleared that resistance at 65, and at that point we started leaning towards the long side of the market. And so far it hasn't been a rocket up, but it's been a steady grind to the upside. And we are right up here at the 80. So it's a good sign. We'll take it. So definitely a market which is very right up here at this attractor area at the 80s. That's where we thought it was going to go if we could clear and hold above that 45 area. And so right up there, that's where we went. And at this point, I would say that we are a good spot to potentially trade back up again to this edge. You see this area at the 6100s. That's where we're going to find the next area of resistance. So watching that, at this point, I'm going to start off on the long side of the market going into the overnight. Looking to buy weakness. At this point, it's going to be against, take this off. It's going to be against support at 60, 65, 55s. It's going to be down one edge at the 40s. It's going to be one edge here at the 30s and one here probably at the 20s for rotations back up. If the trade below the 20s, bets are off. We are heading lower at that point. But definitely looking to buy weakness going into the overnight. If the trade down below the 65s, I would take off the long bias and go back more range bound, but I would not really give up on the long side until they clear that 40 levels. They start trading below the 40s, I think they're back in that lower range again. So initially looking to buy in against the 65s, the 55s, the 45s, or the 40 to 45s for rotations back up. Below that one, we take off the long bias, and then we have the 30s and the 20s to buy against as the levels below the obvious. All right, so that is where we start this overnight. All right, now the news for tomorrow. We got, let me see here. We have job cut report at 7:30. We had jobless claims at 8:30, productivity and costs at 8:30, and that's about it. So not a whole lot of news. At 8:30 we get the news tomorrow, and that's about it. A few Fed speakers as well tomorrow. Looking at the bonds and the Nasdaq. So the bond market is right up here against that 1608. They took out 115s, and we got a straight shot right up here to 116, and then just went sideways. Very much what we expected it to be. A one shot up to the upside to 1612, and that was it. But I would expect range bound trading. Now I'm going to start off from the long side and see if they can look to buy weakness, see if they can retest this high, potentially take it higher. But chances are we might just see a market go sideways here against this area. But initially, just to see if this move is going to continue or not. Looking to buy against, it's going to be against the 16s, against the 115, 27, 28s. And if this starts trading below the 15, 22s, I'll probably taking off the long bias and looking more for a retracement trade, maybe to the downside here. And if they hold, they can certainly retrace and reverse retest these support areas at the 115.04, 115s. That would be a pretty good move to the downside also. If they trade below that area, the 28s, maybe down to the 23, 24. If they retrace these single prints and start trading below that, I think I'll take off the long bias and look for a retracement trade back to that, to a reverse retest. But at this point, starting off on the long side, let's see how far they can take it. So yields coming down a bit. The prices on the bonds are heading higher. So ES is up to the upside. Nasdaq is also having a super strong showing. They are back up again, and they have cleared the resistance hurdles. They are heading up towards this upper area again, to the 800s. So they're getting into this area where we're looking for good resistance. So against the 700s, the 740s, and the 800s, we're looking for resistance to kick in. And so far the 750 is an area we had there this morning. That's where the market is stalling right now. And so a potentially short setting up there. If they clear that area, I would look for a run up here to the 800s. So that's kind of where we're at. And then I would also look for a short setup against that 800 level, because that's going to be a pretty good area of resistance. If they can clear 800 and start trading above it, that's when it really opens up to the upside. So that's where we are. Starting off on the long side, let's see how far I can take it. Looking to buy weakness at this point against the 700s, the 660s. It's going to be one edge a little bit higher at the 630s for rotations back up. And I think if they trade below the 630s, taking out the long bias, going back range bound on the Nasdaq. So we'll see. They're heading up into pretty good resistance on the Nasdaq. The ES took out resistance, right? So the ES is a little bit on the better side of this, leading us higher. Nasdaq is running into it right now. So Nasdaq fails, it could certainly be a move to the downside coming up here. So we're still trading in a range, and the Nasdaq, if that can't take out the 800s, we may see a rotation right back here to the 21,500s. Now, the reason this Nasdaq has had a hard time all day today has been that both AMD and Google has been being hammered. Uber too also is getting hammered. They have big stocks on Tesla. Tesla is also getting hammered. So some of these big tech stocks are getting sold, and that's kind of leaning on it, but they're still grinding it to the upside. Now, I did take on another trade on the Nasdaq. I took two trades. One was the first one here, the short, and that one got me shaken out. The second time, same story. They ran it high. I was a little bit late on that entry. Ran it pretty good move here, but then they ran it back up again and shook me out. So I got a few more bucks. So 1350 on two contracts on the Nasdaq today. I was expecting them to have a little bit more of a move to the downside after that initial run up. So, but they're holding it, and now they're slowly grinding to the upside. So, after a couple of short attempts here, I figured that not worth to step on the short side, especially when that retracement was taking out the 720s. At that point, you know that okay, fine, I'm wrong on this one in terms of direction. They're trying to take it higher. So we'll see. Finally, oil and gold. So both ES and Nasdaq starting from the long side. Be mindful, Nasdaq is running into resistance. The ES have cleared it. Finally, gold and oil. So gold is just kind of holding in that range still. They're holding above that 28, 77, 78 low volume area. That's going to be stalling activity that happened this morning. But if they trade below 77, I would include the 70s too, these two support areas. I will take off the long bias and look for a retracement back to the 2850s. But at this point, definitely trade on the long side of the market. Look to buy weakness. At this point, again, the edge. We have one edge at 81. Gonna have one here at the 78s and one here at the 70s for 70 to 71s. Rotations back up again. So, but the gold has been super volatile. I have not traded gold today. I got my lesson yesterday. That's too volatile, too choppy. I'm staying out of it. It had to be a little bit better action or a better setup for me to want to engage that one. And then finally, oil. As we said that last update, yes, been going sideways since the last update. Not much happening. So, range-bound biases to the downside on oil. We just watch for the cross currents. I mean, if you can get short against resistance, that's the preferred trade. At this point, it's going to be one edge here at the 7150, one at the 7210s, one up here at the 7230s. Now, if they trade above the 7230s, I'm taking off the short bias and going back range bound for the trading day. So that's the way to start on the on oil. Not going to be super aggressive to buying oil. I mean, if they're down at the support area and you start seeing a violent move to the upside, it could be a good area to get long against, but it has to be against support and it has to be with a bit of caution. You don't want to be taking too big risk on the long side. Even if it looks great when it rallies like that, it's just it keeps popping like that, and then they grind it right back down again. So anyway, so oil range bound, bias to the downside. Gold range bound with a bias to the upside. Back to the ES, and at this point, okay, we're still holding. So if they close above that 65, so we are leaning towards the long side of the market, and let's see how far they can take it. Alrighty, we'll wrap it there. I'll see you back bright and early in the morning. You guys have a good evening. Later.